Ooh, a spicy question. I
because
love
the
it.
writing is sort of everything, right? Like you kind of can fix plot holes, but if the writing isn't
So some
there,
readers love that, and some readers are like, but I wanted more of this. So it's kind of a gamble.
Hello and welcome back to the Right and Wrong podcast. On today's episode, I am joined by a USA Today and Sunday Times best-selling cozy contemporary romance author. It's BK Borison. Hello.
Hi, thank you for having me today.
Thanks so much for coming on. Let's start with your latest novel, which is out on the 26th of February in the UK, on the 24th, I think, in the US. Tell us a little bit about your seventh book, and now back to you.
Oh gosh, I didn't realize it was the seventh book. That's thrown me a little bit. And Now Back to You apparently is my seventh book, but it's the second book in the Heartstring series, where each book is sort of a light twist on a Nora Ephron classic. The first one was a twist on Sleepless in Seattle. This one is a twist on When Harry Met Sally. And Now Back to You, two competing meteorologists are sort of against their will paired together to cover a historic snowstorm that's coming to the East Coast. And the trials and tribulations of two very opposite people having to work together.
Yeah, a classic setup for a romance story. I love that.
Yes.
Why meteorologists?
I don't know. I knew I wanted this series to focus on a small local radio station. When I was writing the first one, I knew it was going to be about a radio personality, someone who hosted a romance hotline. And then as I was writing it, a character popped up who did the weather for the radio station. And I knew that the second book would be about him. Unfortunately, I don't know anything about meteorology. And so when I was writing this book, it was a lot of research. But then I was so lucky because a gal reached out on Instagram who works for the National Weather Service here in the US. And she said, I love your books. If you have any questions about weather for the second book, just let me know. So I picked her brain endlessly about different weather phenomena, weather predicting models. She was endlessly helpful. But yeah, I really love local reporting. It's something my family always had on growing up on television. And so I think there's something deeply comforting about, knowing who your weatherman is, knowing who your weatherwoman is, the news anchors you find comfort with. So yeah, it was fun to sort of explore this different world. And I learned a lot about weather while writing this book.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's amazing that you just found someone that you could speak to and just totally get all the information you needed from them.
I am so grateful to Meg from the National Weather Service.
And it's within the romance setting itself, it's the sort of opposites attract is the kind of main trope, right?
Yes.
Are there any other tropes that readers can look out for or be excited about in this book?
I think probably sort of fish out of water because, they're going off to the mountains to cover a snowstorm. Jackson is very regimented and he likes his order. He likes his routines. Delilah is very chaotic, but in a whimsical way. And so let's see what else. Forced proximity, because there, of course, as in every romance novel, there's only one room at the end, so they have to share a hotel room for the book. I'd probably call it more of a slow burn, I would say. I don't know. I don't write with tropes in mind. So this is always the difficult part when it comes to I'm like, oh, what did I write about? Where does that fall? But yeah, I think that probably covers it.
Okay, that's interesting because I was going to ask. It was fun to ask romance authors because it's sort of tropes are so baked into the genre, but lots of genres do it as well. But I always ask, like, do you write the story with the tropes in mind? But it sounds like you don't. You kind of figure out. You kind of go back retroactively and think, oh, I did this trope, this trope, this trope.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I feel like I'm almost against writing to certain tropes because I'm like, oh, like everyone's going to know that's what's going to happen. Like if you send 2 weather people to the mountains for a snowstorm, everyone assumes there's only going to be one room at the hotel. And I remember when I wrote this draft, I had them in separate rooms in separate beds. And my editor was like, you can't do this. You can't do it. She was like, you cannot send them off, on this trip and not have it just be one room. So I do cave to pressure to include more tropes in my writing, but no, I tend to write this story. And I think sometimes I'm like, oh, this would fit well here for this story. Yeah. But it tends to be story first. And then I'm like, oh, did this one.
Because inevitably you're going to write a couple of tropes just by writing the story, just because that's how all stories will have tropes in them.
Yes, exactly. I think, tropes are just a different word for archetypes, I think, and story archetypes have existed for millennia. So I think every writer uses them, whether they want to use them in marketing or not. Yeah. They're going to appear in whatever piece you write. Yeah.
And whilst you don't plan with tropes in mind, do you plan your stories ahead of writing them?
Oh gosh, I try to. I really try to. I'm not a strict outliner. I find that when I have big details, when it's very regimented in terms of this happens this chapter, this happens that chapter, it feels more like I'm writing towards a roadmap instead of letting my creativity go free. I feel almost stifled by it. So I try to have like sweeping ideas on where I'm going, where I'm ending up. I write romance, so everybody knows where we're ending up. But I try to have a broad strokes picture of what the story will look like. This one, I had no idea what it would look like, which was challenging. This book was, I was the least prepared going into it, solely because this book, Jackson and Delilah's book, was supposed to be the 3rd book in the series. But when my editor read book 1, she was like, okay, this one's next. And I was like, actually, no. And she was like, no, actually, you have to write this book next. And so I was prepared to write the other story in the series and not this one. So it was a little bit, and I would say a little bit, I think I got 40 new gray hairs when I was writing this book, but a lot of, I call it, to make it sound more professional, I call it discovery writing, where you're sort of trying to figure out where you're going. But it was just a lot of, who are you? What are you doing? Why are you here?
Okay. Yeah. So you would like to plan, but it sounds like you have ideas that kind of percolate in your head and you're sort of vaguely bearing them in mind whilst just kind of discovering your way to the story itself.
Yes. Unfortunately for me.
But like you said, what's nice about romance, I mean, not all romance, most romance does do happily ever after, doesn't all do it, but at least with happily ever after, where the destination is, like, where you're going to end up.
Yeah, I think that's the comfort for both the reader and the writer, right? Is that when you open a romance novel, that at the end of it, you will be taken care of. Whether you like how they got there or not, at the end of the book, the 2 characters will either be happily ever after or happy for now.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Is when you're outside of writing, when you're reading, is romance the genre that you spend most of your time with?
Yeah, I would say so, yes. Usually when I'm drafting, though, I have to read outside of genre. So I go more probably fantasy and sci-fi. Okay. I'm a big weenie when it comes to thrillers and horror. But I tried to, one of my dear friends just wrote his horror novel, and I read that in support. And I had nightmares for weeks. So
oh, no.
Beautifully written, but I can't read horror. I tend to read outside of genre when I'm drafting, but mostly a romance girl for sure.
Oh, okay. And then when you're editing, you'll read in genre?
Yeah, usually. Yeah, because I find like the hardest part, you don't want to, like, I kind of call it like osmosis. Like, I don't want to accidentally lift anything from anyone else. And so editing, I'm a little bit more separate from it's more mechanical and less.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to describe it. I'm less in the zone with composing, and it's more just the mechanics of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think a lot of writers do it that way as well.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they try and read outside of their genre, or they don't read, or they read nonfiction. I think I've spoken to a few others who they're like, Just do
Awful.
non-fiction one day. Well then, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it inspires them to get back into doing the draft that they're supposed to be doing and not procrastinating.
Maybe I'll try that. Maybe I'll try that next.
So when did you first start writing? Were you pretty young when you first started?
I've been, I was one of those kids who was very I would get caught in daydreams a lot. I was more interested in reading at the library, I think, than anything else. Always a very bookish kid, imaginative, bookish person. And so I would write little short stories. And I think like most millennials that have decided to write novels, I really dipped my toes in writing fiction with fan fiction.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that was probably most of my adolescence was writing fan fiction. And then writing has always sort of been part of my day job, professional day job.
Mm-hmm.
And then I decided to write my own original story. And what year was it? Oh, it was during COVID. Yeah. So during COVID, when everybody was holed up in their houses, I decided I'd take a shot at writing my first book. No plan, no expectations, self-published it through Amazon. And now we're here on book 7, apparently. Here we are.
I have to ask, because it's always fun to know. And like you're amongst, like you said, it's a very millennial thing to have done. And I've had many authors who have said that they, their first writing they did was in fan fiction. What was the subject of your fan fiction?
I don't say. I don't share. I always say.
You won't say? Okay.
I won't say it. I always tell people, if you guess it, then I will say yes or no, but I don't. It was funny so I went on tour for Good Spirits, which was my book that came out in October. And there were a couple people on tour who had bound copies of my fan fiction, and I'm not public about what I wrote or like what name. So it's funny that a couple people have started to figure it out, and it was deeply shocking when the first girl came up, and she was holding something under the desk, and she was like, "I have something to show you. If this is weird, we don't have to talk about it." And she like pulled it like contraband, and then she pulled it out and presented. I was like, "Oh my God." But yeah, some people know. I think it's probably slowly coming out, but I keep it under wraps.
But that's also like really cool to know that like your writing for like such a long time like did reach an audience, and like people were reading it, even though it was.
And it's funny to see that whatever people saw in my fan fiction, they can connect the dots to what I'm writing now. I think my voice has changed so much, but apparently not so much where it's not recognizable. So that's pretty cool that someone found it and figured it out, and then took the time to bring it to me. It was special for sure. Yeah,
to like bind it and then come to an event that you were there. Yeah, that's really nice.
And I was like, I want this. Can I keep this? And she said no. So.
Absolutely not.
Yes, no, this is mine. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you not have them saved somewhere? You can't bind your own copy?
No. That feels very narcissistic if I were to bind my own fan fiction. Maybe I will. I don't know if I have. I'll have to look.
That could be a fun trip down memory lane. And then
gosh.
But it would be interesting to read it then, because I do wonder if the sort of core element of your voice probably hasn't changed that much, but the sort of the skill and the way you put it together has obviously evolved and matured as you've become a more accomplished writer. Yeah,
and it's funny as you step away from books and then return to them, stuff you've written, it's almost like, wait, did I write this? Like this sounds pretty nice. I like this. I have that experience sometimes with when I'm doing past pages, which is the final stage of a book before it goes to publication. And I'll be reading through a book. I'm reading through past pages right now for a book that I finished. Oh gosh. Mid last year is when I finished it. So I'm reading past pages now. And I'm like, oh wow, this is pretty nice. You did a good job in this one. But you forget sometimes when you step far enough away and return to it. It's nice in a way.
Yeah. Nice to, I think it's, it might be, I think it's Zadie Smith another author who said that like one of the best things you can do for a manuscript is like write it and then put it away and leave it for like as long as you can, years if possible, and then come back to it, and then edit it after that.
I used to be adamantly against that, but yes, I definitely, going from the indie sphere where everything is so rapid release to traditional publishing, which is a lot more drawn out of a timeline. I think that's something I've gotten a deep appreciation for, is moving away from something, maybe going to something else, and then coming back to it and being like, oh, okay, I can make this better here. I can strengthen it there. It's definitely been something I have learned to love.
Yeah, to have a sort of break from a thing, completely detach from it, and then be able to come back fresh and look at it sort of like a stranger in some ways. Before we head over to the woodland cabin, I just have a quick question for you about, we're going to get into it in a bit, but you indie published, now you're traditionally published. This is your 7th book coming out. You have an 8th book coming out later this year.
Yes.
Your experiences with writing and publishing, if you could go back, would you do anything differently?
You know, I get this question a lot, and my answer is always the same. I don't think I would do a single thing differently, because it's led to exactly right here. And I think the thing that probably benefited me the most when I started, and still benefits me to this day, is that when I wrote my first book, I didn't have any expectation as to what it would do or its performance. I didn't think I would sell it, like I was never going to query it. I was never going to try to shop it to traditional publishers. It was a book that I wrote purely for myself. And I think that mindset of, I'm going to do this book for me, and what happens will happen, has served me incredibly well throughout the process. It like gives me a healthy detachment from the book. I'm not stewing in expectation, or I hope it does this, I hope it does that. I just write the book I want to write, and then I sort of am able to move forward with it. I think holding on to that for as long as humanly possible is a very good thing. And so I don't know if there's anything I would say to myself that would change where I am right now. Okay,
yeah. I think that's great advice coming into this. I've heard similar advice where people were like, they're glad that they didn't know how the industry worked or anything like that, because it meant that they could just enjoy writing their first book and just like focusing all their energy onto that. And you coming into this saying like, you basically just wrote that for the joy of writing and because you wanted to create a story with no expectation. I think that's the healthiest way with an industry as like unpredictable and competitive as this, and subjective. So much of it is just subjective. Who succeeds and who doesn't. I think that's such a healthy way of looking at it.
Yeah, and it's really difficult to hold on to that. I think everybody naturally has a sort of hopes and dreams, and then you start working with publishers and they're like, okay, well, our expectations are this, and we're like, oh great, well there goes that. When you get into the more businessy aspect of it, because it at its core, it's strange that something that takes so much heart, you put so much of your heart in a book, and then it can be so cut and dry and cold with the industry side of it. So trying to hold on to the things that make it meaningful for you as an author. I think it's important, even if not incredibly difficult to do so.
Yeah. Well, at least to some degree, when it comes to traditional publishing, at least there's an element of you can stay 90% just on the creative stuff, and then you now have the publisher to do all the business side of things for you. You don't have to think too much about it. Which is nice.
Yes, it is nice. I think probably the thing that threatens kicking me off that path the most is, and probably something that's more prevalent in the last couple of years, is just how loud reader voices can be existing in social spaces, on social media, and just like the internet in general. I think it's inevitable that you will see feedback on what you're writing, and not hearing those what can be very loud voices when you're drafting can be difficult. I think that's probably been the most challenging part, is not letting reader voices be too loud, and just relying on my gut, which has, written all these stories. But sometimes reader voices can be strong, which is a good thing, a passionate, wonderful thing, but it can also be like, eek.
Yes. The internet, in many ways, a double-edged sword. Yeah.
Yes.
All my friends who are authors, like, mostly try to avoid Goodreads. Every now and again, one of them will text me and be like, well, I went on Goodreads and now I'm depressed.
Yeah, it is the worst. Not the worst. It's just like it's so tempting, right? Because I don't think there's any other job in the world where you can log on to a website and see every single person who has consumed your product, what they honestly think about it. So it's real-time marketing research, right? Which can be really helpful as an author, and it can be also like very demoralizing.
Yeah.
As an author.
And the worst thing as well is because like you said, writing a book, there's so much heart. There's so much of you in it. It's such a very personal endeavor. It's like you can read 20 reviews and 19 of them could be great. And there's just one review where the person really didn't like it and they're just telling you exactly why they didn't like it. And that one review can just ruin your whole day.
It really can. I think that's been the hardest part as adjusting to this as a career, is that you write a book, you put all of your emotions and intentions into it, but when the book is out with other people, it doesn't matter the intentions with which you wrote it. People are going to consume that book with their own perspectives, their own life experiences, and it's going to shape how they interpret it. And you cannot control what somebody else thinks and feels about a book you've written. You can't be like, well, no, I didn't mean that. I meant this. That's just not how it works. And I think that's the hardest part for me, I think, about putting a book in the world. The scariest part is that when it's out there, it's not yours anymore. It's everyone else's.
Yes. Because also as a reader, in some ways you're like an active participant. The author has put out a structure, but it's your imagination that's you're kind of working together. It's sort of oddly collaborative in a way.
Yeah.
And I don't think it gets easier, to be honest.
Good. Great.
That's what I've heard. But that's good, because it means that if you don't want to be unaffected once you've written 20 books, for you to be like, I've done 20 books now, I don't care what the reviews and stuff say. It's like, well, I think you should care. It would be nice. You want to know how people feel, that you're resonating with people, and your readers are enjoying what you're writing.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah,
I do reach a certain threshold though. Like, I'm very antsy about feedback in the 3 months before a book comes out, because I feel like that determines so much for how a book performs, right? Early feedback can inform so much of the business side of it. And so I get very skittish, I would say, with how people think and feel about it. But then once it's in the world, I'm like, okay, it's no longer mine. It's gone. It's out of my hands. There's nothing I can do.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I let go of it at a certain point.
Yeah. Okay. And it sounds like part of that is because you started in the sort of independent publishing arena, which we're going to get onto a bit later. But right now, I have to ask you, Bex, if you were snowed in at a cozy woodland cabin in the middle of nowhere, which book would you hope to have with you?
I would hope to find anything by Cat Sebastian. But very specifically, her favorite book of mine is, it's actually not even out yet. Can I say that? It's called Starshipped. Sure. It's called Starshipped. And it comes out in March. It's by Cat Sebastian. It's her first. She typically writes historicals. This is her first contemporary. And it's about two co-stars on a cult TV show who hate each other, who, of course, in romance fashion, are forced to take a road trip together across the country and realize they have a lot more in common than they thought. And it's just the way Kat writes love stories is very tender. It's very gentle. And something about her writing just scratches my brain so deliciously. I'm trying to think of her prose, her flow, the way she composes a story is just really beautifully done. And I love her, and I will read anything she ever writes forever.
Okay, amazing. An incredible endorsement from a fellow romance writer. So that's definitely one for all the romance fans out there to add to their list. Next up, we are going to get, like I said, we're going to pick up a bit on the sort of indie publishing stuff. We're going to talk about Bex's publishing journey, how she started out in self-publishing, moved into traditional publishing. That will all be available in the extended episode at patreon.com/rightandwrong.
Ramble about story ideas, and so I think it's never, no author writes a book on their own, as much as ego likes to say we do, but it's not an independent process.
Yeah, it takes a village.
Yes,
as they say. And that brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you so much, Bex, for coming on and chatting with me and telling me all about your kind of writing and publishing journey. It's been really, really fascinating talking with you.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
And Bex's new book, And Now Back to You, is out, as I said, end of February in the UK and the US. She also has Grim Tidings coming out later on at the end of the year. If you want to keep up with what Bex is doing, you can find her on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads at author BK Borison, or on her website, bkborison.com. To support this podcast, like, follow, and subscribe. Join the Patreon for ad-free extended episodes, and check out my other podcast, The Chosen Ones and Other Tropes. Thanks again, Bex, and thanks to everyone listening. We will catch you on the next episode.